Today we're going to be digging into a TTR50 motorcycle. We've got transmission problems with this motorcycle, so we're going to tear it down, get into the bottom end, figure out what's going on with that motor before we rebuild it. First thing we're going to do is pull the cylinder head off here. We've adjusted the valves in a separate video. We've got brass washers right here, and they a lot of times you like to replace those. If you don't replace them, you definitely like to make sure this head is torqued on here. We got our intake manifold bolts here, two Allen bolts, and then we'll flip this motor to the other side and we'll pull the cam chain sprocket as well as the cam chain off. We've got our tensioner as well on this side. 8mm to pull that cam chain sprocket cover off of there. It's got a rubber O-ring that seals that up really good there, making it sometimes a little challenging to come off of there. Again, our Allen bolts on this side for our cam chain tensioner. Now, when we're going back together with this motor, we will take this 10mm center bolt loose, but to just take this apart right now at this time, I like to just take these Allens, do a little bit at a time. Cam chain tensioner will not go in unless this is reset here, which is why we pull this pin there. Taking the cam chain sprocket off now, we've got the tensioner out, so our cam chain has some is loose. We can take our 17mm, spin that sprocket bolt off of there. I like to take a pick or a screwdriver and just work that sprocket out. You can use a couple different ones, or you can use a pick with an angle. So then I take and I drop it down, and all we're trying to do right now is give us room to get our cylinder head off. We've got 8mm coming down alongside this head. That will have to be pulled before that head comes off of there. And I believe that is it for bolts. And that's actually going to pull the cylinder off as well. I'm going to take a rubber mallet here and tap up, try to separate these just so you can see the difference there. Right, 8mm bolts here. Cam chain there, pull the cam chain, just pull this Allen bolt here. That'll allow you to pull the whole cam chain out. We've got two tiny little valves there. We've got our intake on this side, exhaust on this side. Pull the cylinder then, like I said, it's already started to come out, but we'll take this cam chain sprocket off, and then we've got a guide that'll come out as well at this time. Cylinder head gasket is here. Obviously, you want to replace this every time you pull this cylinder head. These are a one-time use only. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this cylinder now too. Cylinder on this machine, the bike ran great, just had transmission problems. So that's a cylinder, extremely small. Check it for scoring, check it for out or around. Any kind of damage at all, you'll want to hone that cylinder. To pull your piston off now, take a small pick. I like to use an L shape and get in behind the circlip now and just pry in that groove to try to pull that circlip off of there. I like to put my thumb in behind there, keep that pin from going anywhere. Take that pin now, that's as small as that circlip is there, and now we can take and pull that pin out. And a lot of times I've got pliers that'll pull a pin out pretty well, but sometimes you take a small pair of pliers, shove it a little bit farther, and then you can get a hold of it. You want to make sure you don't damage this pin as you want it to move freely, but that's your tiny little piston there. Now to get it back on there, same thing but in reverse. I take that groove, set it in there like that, and then I take my pick or a small screwdriver then, use it to push, popped out of there, but use it to push it in and set it into place there. That's the piston on that. This guide here we'll pull out when we get farther down into the motor. I'm going to pull this stator cover here now. I want to get it to a spot where you guys are able to see it. I'm going to set this block right underneath the starter there. We did not drain this oil, so we will have a mess at some point. 8mm bolts all the way around this stator. We have a gear position sensor down here. Take that out, get these wires out of the way. Just a couple turns, that one will come out, and then our starter bolt, our starter's over here, and those wires run around the stator as well. So we'll go ahead and pull all these. I showed you what these two caps are on a separate video, finding top dead center. And now this cover's ready to come off. Also has a gasket that you want to replace every time. There's your stator assembly there. Here's your an idler gear. That shaft a lot of times will stay in there. But you want to make sure this gasket's good, or at least replace. You got your pulser there and your stator. That's your charging system on this motorcycle. Next we got your flywheel. Take our 17mm. I like to hold this here, keep it from spinning. And these pullers I do have for sale if somebody wants one. Right on like that. What I do then is take this, run this nut back on there. Alright, and these you want to put on as far down as you can get them. Generally a ½ inch is adequate. And then again, make sure that they are on there snug. You don't have to tighten them up because there's really nothing for them to tighten against. And it's as simple as that. It just snaps off of there. It doesn't look very tight, but you won't be able to pull it off with your hands for sure. And then we're able just to pull that flywheel off. This one has the electric start, so it'll have a gear in behind it, and that is a one-way gear. We've got a cotter pin here, or a Woodruff key here, holding this into place, but this will set on there, and then that'll only spin one way. And then that is the last time we'll need that flywheel puller. Even putting it back together, we won't need any special tools to put it back together. We've got our cam chain here that we can pull out now. And then our other guide sits on here with a Allen bolts. Our idler, I pulled that out, you guys probably saw that, but was sitting down in there, and I didn't want that flywheel to spin or cause any problems with that idler gear, so I just went ahead and pulled it out. But all it is two pieces there, a gear and a shaft, and there's actually two gears on there. Once you get them loose, I like to use an impact, but I really don't like to use an impact until these are loose, because they have a tendency, especially on these smaller ones, to just round off these Allens. So other cam chain guide was out. That was the guide that the tensioner actually pushes against. We've got our starter now. We've got a bolt here and here that's going to remove that starter. And I won't remove it yet, but I'll pull these bolts because our block is actually sitting where that motor is. So then we've got, like I said, our starter wire here, the hot wire. So we've got a guard here. Obviously clean that up really good when we go back together, but 8mm bolts all the way around here. I was going back together with this motor immediately. I'd keep those bolts in the same order I pulled them apart, just save time. But it's going to be a little while before we put this motor, after we see what parts we need for this transmission, I will put this motor back together. Sensor's out, clean that up really good. And we will now at this time take and flip this motor over. And pull the clutches apart. There's the oil that I knew was going to come at some point. So we've got 8 millimeters all the way around this cover here. Alright, now this cover, and actually with that shift shaft going through the other side there, we've actually got some tension against this cover, which is why it just kind of popped off of there. And as soon as we pull this, I'm guessing, or as soon as we tap on this, I'm guessing that cover will kind of pop off. That shaft on the other side, that shifter shaft is hitting against this cover. And there is our clutch cover there. We've got our dipstick. We've got our clutch adjust underneath these 2 screws there. And I'll show you a video on how to adjust that clutch. We've got our shift mechanism here. That's what's putting pressure on us. I'll just throw all these parts together there. It slides out from the clutch pack. And then we have our clutch assembly here. 3 bolts holding this top plate on, or 3 screws, Phillips screws. You want a good screwdriver taking these off, as with all that oil, it makes them a little slick. To get our shift shaft out, we do have to pull these. And there's that cover. Now we've got a bolt or a nut down inside here. I believe it's a 19. Yep. So again, holding that clutch so it doesn't spin off of there or spin around. And now the clutch is off there. And there is your clutch pack assembly there. Those shoes and plates can be replaced, and they do go bad, especially if you've got bigger riders on there. That's a pretty common thing to replace. 19 millimeter again, I guess. To take this gear off, and I try to again still make sure that this isn't going to spin. When we put this back together, we'll make sure all these get torqued. Then I'll give you those specs. There's your primary gear there. Shift shaft now can be pushed out. Got these 2 gears that'll slide off. Got our oil pump now. Our oil pump will line up with that plastic gear. You don't have to take that plastic gear off to remove the oil pump. But these can be a bit of a challenge getting off there. So we'll grab the impact driver here. Then once we get those loosened up, and then our oil pump can just be pulled off there. I take and put those screws back down in there. You turn that half turn, and you can move that oil pump around without those screws falling out. Got our shift star here. We've got a circlip holding that on. Here's a clutch gasket here that we're obviously going to replace. Sometimes those just come out of there on some models. Grab the circlip out of there. This is spring loaded. Looks like we are ready to split that case. Doesn't look like anything else is holding this up, so I'm going to take and just kind of tap on this. That's all it took. Our base gasket here, obviously we ripped, and we'll replace that. We'll replace that no matter what. Set this crank case down this way. We're going to take and you can tap on those if you need, and we are going to need to tap on this countershaft sprocket. Countershaft starter just kind of fell out there, you saw that. There's your one side of the crankcase there. Here's your crankshaft there. Starter is out. And then down to the transmission. The reason why we tore this apart in the first place. We have our forks here. And our fork is actually not moving freely, so that might be part of the issue. We should be able to slide this around. Well, there it's free there, so just bind it up on something. But the shaft comes out, so you're able to get the shaft off of there. That fork looks good. Shift drum there, we'll go through it and check it over a little bit better, but that actually looks good. The other fork, nothing broke off there. Doesn't look like anything's bent, but we'll check that with some specs. And there we go. There's where it's rough right there. So we've got this shaft here, which is actually got a machined on there gear, is what is damaged. Now we're going to go and replace this gear as well as they work together, but you can see there what piece is damaged. So that is the motor on a TTR50